Imagine, if you will, you're out bebopping along, taking a hike through the forest. Nice sunny day. Life is good. Then you hear it. Doesn't sound quite like gunfire. I'd like to thank David Ellis of the Olympia Project for all the work that he put into examining this audio. Now maybe you think it's gunfire and you just dismiss it. We have been fortunate this year to get two occurrences, two episodes of what I've labeled as rock smashing. But I don't think they're smashing rocks. Now, not only do I have a new theory, I have a prediction to accompany it. Any good theory should have a predictive model. What does this sound like? I know it's not gunfire. It sounds a lot like the thunder, the sound we hear when lightning is generated. Now, just as we had to look at what makes the sound of a gun, right? Like the explosion, the gun sound that we hear, gunfire, is composed of the explosion in the barrel accompanied by the projectile breaking the sound barrier. There's two things going on there that's making the sound that we hear. Sound is generated when something sets up vibrations in the air, like two things impacting, harmonizing, setting up a vibration that then makes air molecules impact other air molecules in this wave that goes through the environment, and then our ears process it. This is all a physical thing. Like the air actually displaces the membrane, and there's three little bones in there that do their things. We need to think about this to understand, how does thunder originate? How does lightning make thunder? They're connected. They seem like two separate phenomena, but when we have a lightning strike, that's a visual thing that we can see. It's an electrical discharge from, sometimes it's from cloud to cloud, or it can be cloud to earth. Thunder is created by the rapid expansion and cooling of air. We have to understand how lightning works. Air is what's known as a dielectric. It's an insulator. That's why we're not getting electrocuted all the time. That's why we can walk by high power sources and we're not zapped, because air doesn't conduct electricity. I mean, look how, for example, you don't get electrocuted by your hairdryer in the air, but if you throw your hairdryer in the bathtub, you might get electrocuted, because water conducts electricity much better than air does. Yeah, but gee, Michael, lightning goes like a mile. Which goes to show how much energy is there. But what happens during a lightning strike is there's a buildup, a potential charge between two different surfaces that have a different charge, and it gets to be enough. It's almost like thinking about a rubber band. It's almost like the rubber band gets to this stretching point and then it breaks. At some point, the air becomes ionized. So the air becomes charged with electricity, which then makes it conducting. At that point, instead of being a dielectric, it's actually a conductor, so it functions just like a piece of copper wire. And then you can get this electricity, this flow of electrons. You get the lightning bolt, if you will, that will go from point A to point B. When it does that, it superheats the air, because lightning bolts are hotter than the surface of the sun. Anytime you heat a material, like a gas, you're increasing its Brownian motion, its kinetic motion. You're increasing another way of looking at it would be like if you had a bunch of gas molecules and they're just hanging out in a room and it's cold, they're not doing a whole lot. They're just going to sit in there. You heat the room up and they start dancing and partying and pushing each other around like they're in a big mosh pit. Once that lightning bolt goes through the air, you've got instant mosh pit. You've got air molecules that went from just snoozing around. Now they're violently pushing their neighbors. They expand because each air molecule is further away. You heat that up, it expands, and it does it super fast. It sets up a shock wave in the air, because if you think about it, when these air molecules, are getting this more energy, and so there's more space between them, it's because they're bumping into each other. And they're doing this violently. And they do it when they expand. They're bumping into more air molecules, and that carries that sound. It creates that sound, actually. Thunder is the sound of air molecules smashing against each other. My new theory, sure somebody will take that like the plant person theory, put that in their book. Confused about what the theory is. Oh, Green Man's been around forever. Of course it has, nitwit. All right, so my theory has to do with how these sounds are generated, these what sounds like rock smashing. Now, David Ellis shared with me an episode where him and a bunch of his research buddies were in the forest, and they heard this, rock smashing, and they were close enough that they had the thing surrounded. One of the guys thought, I'm just going to rush in. I'm going to rush in and get myself a Sasquatch, and ran in there. They heard clack, 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 rapid clacking, and then was nothing there. Now, knowing that these creatures walk in two worlds, here and someplace else, I don't know where the someplace else is. I don't know how they do their little tricks that they do, but I'm considering that there's a test we could do to test this theory. The theory is that these sounds that we're hearing, these so-called wood knocks and these rock clacks, are being caused somehow by the displacement of air. So either there's air in a spot and it's being removed. Now you get a collapse because you got a vacuum. Or, much like what electricity does, they're expanding the air, rapidly heating and cooling it. The rapid heating would expand it, the cooling would then collapse in on itself, making that sound. So my theory is that these sounds are being generated by them displacing air somehow, and perhaps, popping in and out of where it is they're popping in and out of, or whatever it is. However it is that they do this thing where they're there and then they're not there, and it doesn't always seem to make a sound. So there must be a way of doing it, perhaps, to make a sound. But this is just a guess, right? People say, oh, you don't know that. No, I don't know that. But here's the prediction. Here's the predictive model. If this actually is the case, if these sounds are being generated by somehow a displacement or a rapid heating and cooling of air, so you've got a change in temperature and a change in pressure, you should be able to record these, possibly with FLIRs. So my prediction is that at some point in the future, and for all I know it may have already happened, and FLIRs are becoming more affordable, and a lot of people have them now, somebody is going to record this clack, clack, or tree knocking with a FLIR, and they will notice there should be some unexplainable hot flashes, if you will. Because if that's what they're doing, if they're somehow or another collapsing, heating, in other words, like maybe they pop into a space and then they pop back out, which would cause that collapse and would cause that sound. Now, a couple things brought me to thinking this might be the case. I spoke to a couple people, that view Sasquatch as both a spiritual and a physical creature that seems to have the qualities of a spiritual being. In other words, being able to do things that we can't do. It's almost as if that the Sasquatch behave more like a wave. Like we're particles, they seem to have a more waviness function for their size. They almost behave as if they're something very small. Now, when David Ellis was doing his examination of the rock smashing incident that I recorded a few weeks ago, he noted that when he looked at his spectrograph, in other words, looked at the audio fingerprint, that it appeared as if these sounds, not only were some of them would vary in amplitude, but some of them appeared to be coming closer or going further away from the recorder. And I got to think about that. How would something move through that environment and be smashing big boulders together? But maybe they're moving through the environment in a different way, because during that same weekend I saw one hop out of a ditch and then just kind of, it made like 3 steps and then just dematerialized, just kind of like turned to powder or smoke. It was like watching a sci-fi special effects. It was unbelievable. Like I still have a hard time thinking maybe I must have saw something else. All right, so there it is. I'm gonna date stamp this before somebody else plagiarizes this idea. Over in that direction.
heard earlier.
That wasn't bacon.